LETRS means language essentials. So because language is the underpinning, the foundation for learning to read and spell, knowledge of language is the foundation for teaching reading and spelling. So interwoven with the information on reading, learning to read, good readers and poor readers, the progression of reading development, and all that good stuff that's in LETRS, interwoven is a lot of information about language. So we actually want people to learn what the speech sounds are. We don't think it's good enough to talk about phoneme awareness unless people really know what the phonemes are. We don't think it's enough to talk about how great spelling is unless we teach them how spelling works. We think that to learn to write, a student has to master sentence structure, but we know that teachers need to be more comfortable with sentences and what makes them work. Why you put a semicolon in a certain place, you know. We're not all born knowing this, and this is part of the conscious or meta-linguistic knowledge, metacognitive knowledge that it takes to teach reading and spelling well. So that's what's different. It's also different because we expect a lot of people who go through LETRS. We have a high standard. We don't just do activities. We do activities in the service of really deepening knowledge, so we are ambitious. And we are also comprehensive. So we really do have a module for everything. I don't think we've left out any of the major pieces of teaching literacy. We weave them together with the same theoretical foundations, the same little models of what's going on that we put in all of the modules. We make posters of these foundational concepts and plaster them around the classroom walls. We come back to them over and over because those ideas structure and are a reference point for everything that we do. It is coherent. It goes together. And at the end of it, people really do understand this idea of interconnectivity of the components of literacy. The effectiveness of LETRS, there are a lot of different ways to evaluate the effectiveness of LETRS. The simplest way is to give pre-tests and post-tests. That is, test what we've taught, and that's pretty easy to demonstrate. We've done that in a couple of little studies that we can teach people the content. But I think what you're really asking is whether it's worthwhile for teachers to go through the effort of the LETRS modules, learning the content and trying to apply it. Is it going to make any difference in what they do? How do we know that it does? Well, I never would have developed LETRS unless I already knew and had good scientific evidence that this kind of professional development was a key factor in student outcomes. We obtained that evidence in an NICHD-funded study that went on for 5 years in Houston and Washington, D.C., where we did this kind of generic professional development because the teachers were working with 2 different programs and some other supplements besides. And we showed that through the measurement of teacher knowledge, the observations of teachers in the classroom, and through student outcome data, that these things were all related. So what teachers did in the classroom was related to what they knew, and that was related to student outcomes. During that kind of pilot project, if you will, where I tested out and learned a lot about how to work with teachers, I learned how little the teachers started with, how receptive they were to learning the information, but that I should not assume anything, and I should lay out the content from the beginning, and I better have a strong rationale for everything that I asked them to learn, because they didn't have very much time, and I better not be asking them to learn things that were frivolous or irrelevant. So I did a lot of practice on those teachers. And then I relied as well on the research that is in a lot of the articles I've written that shows these relationships between teacher knowledge of language and reading instruction and student outcomes. Of course, it's complicated because these effects are more visible over time. They're certainly more visible when the teachers are using a good program. They're more visible when the teachers are working in a supportive context and have strong leadership. And there's a cumulative effect. So I'm the last to claim that just doing letters is going to have much of an effect on anybody, teachers or students. Letters is one piece of a complex puzzle, and those other pieces really need to be there if the value of letters is going to be realized. And we're working harder at helping people who are working with the letters materials do that follow-up work and follow through to the implementation so that all of these rewards can be garnered from the effort.